I'm on Fitz, how are you? And welcome along to the Fit Stop podcast with Lions of Limerick Group and BYD Limerick. I want to say a big shout out to the guys from Lions of Limerick and also from BYD as well. We had an event on with my colleagues at Off the Ball Sports, talking Euros and talking everything football, or if you want to call it soccer, at Lions of Limerick, as we checked out the new BYD cars. Brian Kerr was there, really excited to meet him. Heard him so many times on the television and commentary, and watching him managing as well. And of course he had that quote, didn't he, where he called a pitch cat melogian, and then people had to discover what cat melogian actually means. And it was so great to look at the BYD cars and the beautiful colours as well. I'm obsessed with the colours. I like the blue, but now I'm kind of falling in love with the white, and the world's leading manufacturer of new energy vehicles and powered batteries. They're now available in Ireland. BYD Seal was voted Irish Times Best Car of the Year, and the BYD Atto 3 was voted the Best Compact SUV of the Year. All other information on BYD you can find on the BYD website, or you can check out the guys of Lions in Limerick, BYD Limerick. Call into them, tell them I sent you, and have a look at these beautiful electric cars. And thank you to BYD for the support and Lions of Limerick Group on the podcast. Will we get into it? Will we talk Formula 1? It was another win for Max Verstappen, but he didn't have it too easy. Welcome to the Fit Stop podcast as we look at Spain 2024. It was another win for Max Verstappen in Formula 1 2024, but Max really had to fight for the win this weekend. And also, like Canada the weekend before, Max was having himself a champion's drive. And you have to say that you know, Red Bull mightn't have the quickest car, maybe just marginally ahead of the McLaren, but he still had to fight for this win. It wasn't a lights out till last lap for Max Verstappen, easy 1 or 2 stop strategy. It was a race that he really had to concentrate on, and in his stints as well, it was very important how he minded his tyres. Lando Norris was very fast, but unfortunately Lando got a very slow start. So Max got a good start, got squeezed out. Even Max was complaining on the radio that he got squeezed out by Lando Norris at the start. George Russell did his inner Fernando Alonso. I think Fernando Alonso did that back in 2012, didn't he, where he went around the outside in Spain ultimately to win that race. And the last time that he won his home Grand Prix, we weren't going to get a Spanish win this weekend with Carlos Sainz, but a great start for George Russell. He didn't have the pace, though. He was never going to hold off Max Verstappen or Lando Norris, but Lando Norris will be disappointed with P2. I think it was a race that Lando Norris could have won. Lando Norris put it on P1. Max Verstappen was having a bit of a messy weekend, wasn't he, through free practice 1 and 2 and 3, but he always seems to do it when it comes to the final 2 runs in Q3 in qualifying. And it looked like Max Verstappen was going to get pole position. Piastri could have done very well, but dipped the tyre into the gravel to see him start from the lower end in P10. But it was a great result for Lando Norris to get his second Formula 1 pole position. Hard to believe he's only got 2. It feels like he should have more, but he started on the front row many a time. The last time he got pole position didn't end too well, did it? It was Russia, the Grand Prix, where he should have pitted, and he would have won that race if he had not stayed out in the dries in the rain. But a win that Lando Norris kind of should have got this weekend. But what it's showing us is the field is closing up. Red Bull don't seem to have the fastest car. They're definitely up there, and at certain tracks it will suit them. But if you have a good car in Barcelona, in Spain, you have a good car for the rest of the season. So we've learned that over the years. It's the kind of track where they've tested in the past. I know now we do test the cars in Bahrain to save money and time and save the world and energy when we're travelling, but it's the kind of circuit they use when it comes to simulators. Definitely 100% when they're in the simulators. It's the kind of track, if you get a good balance of the car and good aero, you have a good car for most tracks. Now look, not every car is going to suit every track, and we've seen that with Monaco, and we probably see it in Singapore as well. With Red Bull, there's certain tracks that they're going to be bad on, and Ferrari as well. So we headed into a weekend where Max was looking unstable, but then had the pace in qualifying. McLaren were on it all weekend. Ferrari seemed to look okay in practice, but then when it came to qualifying in the race, they were just off the pace, with Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton back on the podium as well, himself and George Russell. We're definitely in the fight, and we're seeing the upgrades, and Mercedes are starting to understand the car now. I think they're starting to understand where they went wrong with the car and where they need to go, so that'll be a good look for George Russell heading into the 2025 season, as Lewis Hamilton will be heading off to Ferrari, which sometimes we forget because it's so far away. But a good weekend for them, and another weekend struggling for Ferrari. They were looking to bounce back after a disappointing weekend in Canada, after a good weekend in Monaco. Ferrari seemed to be going a bit backwards, but look, Ferrari aren't out of it yet. There will be circuits that will favour Ferrari, and maybe some upgrades to come as well, but a bit of tension between the drivers as well. But let's take a look at your race result of the Spanish Grand Prix. So we've Max Verstappen in first place. He had to fight for that win, had to mind his tyres. He had Lando Norris coming back at him towards the end, so it wasn't an easy win for Max Verstappen, but definitely a champion's drive. Second place, as we said, 2 seconds off for Lando Norris. In the McLaren, he'll be disappointed. It was the race start. That's what lost it for him. If you look at the 4-second gap, that's what he had lost at the start, and I think if he had kept that gap, he would have been fighting Max and potentially would have got DRS and maybe fighting him for a win. So look, he had to do what he could, and he had to stay out longer, and he had to do different strategies, and ultimately it worked to keep him second. He was his team were looking to beat George Russell, but he was like, no, I'm going for the win, I'm going for Max. And, had Max made another mistake, he had one mistake in turn 8, had he made another mistake or reliability issue, it would have been a win for Lando Norris. So disappointed, but still, good pace for McLaren. I think they'll be very strong in Austria, and it's a track that Lando Norris is very good at as well, and I think they'll be good at the British Grand Prix. So it's not all lost. The championship is not over. Lando Norris moves into second in the championship. Ultimately, I think Max will win the championship, but we still have a fight in our hands in 2024, the season we thought which was a write-off. It's starting to get very exciting. Third place for Lewis Hamilton, back on the podium. It's been a while, and his first podium of 2024. There was a funny thing in the press conference where he was lying down waiting for everyone to come in, and Max was like, oh, Lewis is getting a little bit old there. He's 39. He needs a rest. Max Verstappen's only a young fella. Fourth place for George Russell in Mercedes. Good weekend for Mercedes. They're understanding the car, and they're getting better, and that's the main thing, I think, for Mercedes. We're going to see them definitely stronger heading into race weekends. Charles Leclerc in 5th, Carlos Sainz in 6th. Not getting along, are they? Tensions now. There was a bit of contact during the race, and a lot of, we thought we were going to save our tyres and we weren't going to be fighting, whatever. And Carlos Sainz went out and went. Charles Leclerc seems to have something to complain about after every race. So, these two guys that got along. And we saw last year, didn't we, at the Italian Grand Prix, they let him race and they were very close, but they seemed very friendly afterwards. There's a lot of tension there now, and I think with Carlos Sainz going, Carlos Sainz has a lot to show, and he's pretty much up there for sale, really, isn't he? He's got to show he's worked out in the racetrack. Charles very frustrated after his win in Monaco to the dreadful race in Canada. So a lot of tension at Ferrari. I think Fred's going to have to sit these two boys down and do the all waving of the finger, which used to be a Ferrari thing, wasn't it, back in the day? So not a good weekend for Ferrari, but as I said earlier, look, 5th and 6th, they're not out of it, but a disappointing weekend. Piastri in 7th. I suppose considering where he started, probably not the worst for him. I think he definitely could have been up there P2, P3, and potentially could have been fighting for a win. Who knows? He was on a good qualifying lap, which definitely would have seen him start towards maybe the first or the second row of the grid. He'll be disappointed with 7th place. Perez in 8. Difficult one for Perez. He says the car at times is undrivable. Funny, the car he has, and Max Verstappen is winning, but Max is just getting that extra bit out of the car, and obviously he had the 3-place penalty from the penalty that he got in Canada for bringing the car back in an unsafe manner. So Red Bull and even Christian said it, they need to get his mojo back, and they need to get Perez up to where he was. He's had a slump. He had a good start to the season, then he had a bad slump, then he got announced to be staying, and then he had a horrible Canadian Grand Prix. So hopefully he can bounce back, because we know when he's good, he's very good, and he should be up there fighting for wins. Hasn't got a win yet, and hasn't been off the podium in a lot of races. So fingers crossed for Sergio Perez as he signs a new deal, which is just bizarre. It all has to come down to money and sponsorship and keeping Max happy. Gasly 9th, Ocon 10th. They'll be delighted. They'll be happy with points. It's the right direction for Alpine. And interesting enough, former Renault boss Flavio Briatore is back. He was banned from Formula 1. That was lifted, I think, a few years ago. The Singapore Grand Prix. We might do a special on it. We might talk about it someday. Basically, they fixed the race for Alonso to win, and they got his teammate Piquet to crash into the wall on purpose. And it all came out because Piquet turned into a whistleblower for the FIA, and himself and a few others got banned from Formula 1, but Briatore is back. He is a manager, obviously, as well for Fernando Alonso, so he's kind of in a consultancy role for Alpine. Whether that be a good thing or not, it'll probably bring us some entertainment. Hulkenberg, good pace for him in 11th place. Fernando Alonso, his home race, very disappointed to be a lap down. Not great for Aston Martin at the moment, is it? In 12th place. Zhou Guanyu in 13th. Still no points for Kick Sauber. Another struggling weekend for them. Lance Stroll also struggling in the Aston Martin as well. The number 18 driver finished in 14th place. Daniel Ricciardo, disappointing weekend. They were really off the pace this weekend. After a few great Grand Prix, the circuit did not suit them at all, and the RBs very off the pace. One lap down, 15th for Ricciardo. Valtteri Bottas, Kick Sauber in 16th. Magnussen in 17th. Another disappointing weekend, really, with Albon in 18th place as well, and Logan Sargent at the back of the grid, and Yuki Tsunoda as well. Very strange Grand Prix. We had no yellow flag, and this also happened last year as well. No safety car, no yellow flag. I don't remember one yellow flag coming from this Grand Prix, and that's just absolutely bizarre. But we've seen that at times when the cars are really reliable, and also when the drivers are kind of on it. There's no yellow flags, and there was an incident or two. Did Albon go off, I think, and Max went off, but there wasn't any yellow flags. Maybe they were too close. Verstappen took the championship lead after winning the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix. He has not lost that. Here's a fact for you: 763 days since Max Verstappen lost the lead. The winner came from the front row in Barcelona for the 31st time in 34 races. Norris P2 is the only driver to finish in the points in every Grand Prix so far in 2024. And Lando Norris being driver of the day as well. Once again, Max Verstappen not the driver of the day, even though he actually won the Grand Prix. That seems to be a theme at the moment, and Norris has moved into the second position in the championship. It's the first time he's ever been there. McLaren have now been on the podium for 6 consecutive races. That's first time since the run back in 2011, 2012, and the race was the 5th time in the last 6 races that Verstappen and Norris have finished 1-2 in either order as well. And Lewis Hamilton, first podium P3, which was a good one. It was his 198th career podium finish, but his 17th podium finish since his last win in Saudi Arabia in 2021. So look, Lewis Hamilton said he was delighted just to even get himself back onto the podium, and McLaren's Oscar Piastri was P7, his lowest finish since failing to score in Miami. At Ferrari, P5 for Charles Leclerc was his highest finish in Spain since 2021, so not really a good circuit for Ferrari. And for Charles, we head into 2 more races. We've a double header coming up. Well, it's a triple header. It was this weekend in Spain. We head into Austria, which is the Red Bull Ring, which is owned by Red Bull. Difficult circuit, even though it's quite easy and doesn't have many corners and it's quite short. It's very bumpy, and if you go off and you go over the curbs, you tend to damage your car. We see good racing there, so I think it's going to be very close. I'm actually going to pip Lando Norris to win that Grand Prix this weekend coming. I actually think he's going to win it. It's going to be close with Max, I think, but I can see him winning this weekend. McLaren are going to be on it. And then we head into the British Grand Prix in Silverstone as well, which is going to be another good one. I think it's going to be very close between Red Bull and McLaren at certain tracks, and I think over the next 2 races in a row we're going to see an absolute fight for a win. And you never know, like if Max has a DNF 1 or 2 races and Lando Norris picks up some wins or podiums, we might have a fight for the championship. Now, as I said earlier, I think Max Verstappen's going to win the championship, but you never know. Anything can happen in Formula 1. There's a famous quote from Murray Walker about anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does. It does. So look, it's not out. There's a long way to go in the championship. Unreliability. We might see drivers crashing. We haven't seen Norris and Verstappen have kind of a Verstappen and Hamilton moment. Maybe tensions and things like that are coming in. Good bit of tension in Ferrari as well. So looking forward to the next 2 Grand Prix. But it's Max Verstappen who got another win, 2 wins in a row in 2 races that he's had to have a championship drive where it's been quite close, where you think he shouldn't have won them, but he did. Lando Norris as well. That's 2 Grand Prix that Lando Norris could have won. McLaren are back. It is great to see. It's so exciting to see McLaren fighting at the front, and it's a very close season so far, and that'll bring us into 2025, where hopefully it'll be very close as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the 2 Grand Prix happen in Austria. I'm going to be off, of course, at the Limerick match next weekend as well, so we'll have a podcast after the Silverstone Grand Prix. If you're heading to Silverstone Grand Prix, have a good one. I've actually seen a lot of people that I follow on Instagram and social media at the Grand Prix over the weekend in Spain. I was very disappointed that I didn't book tickets, and I was absolutely sickened where I was going to nearly log out of my Instagram at one stage, but seeing lots of people at the race the weekend. And before I go, I have to say congratulations to Alex Dunn, first ever Irishman on the podium at P2 over the weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix. In the sprint race, it was great to see him on the podium, finishing 2nd place. Didn't really get to fight for first. The safety car came out at the end with Montoya having that incident, so unfortunately we didn't get to see maybe, but he kind of stuck in a DRS train. I don't think he was going to win the Grand Prix. Kind of seemed a bit disappointed, but maybe he wanted that race win, but it's great to see him on the podium, and let's see where Alex Dunn goes from this. But congratulations to the young Irish driver. Obviously racing for a junior McLaren team. Would be great to see him in Formula 1, wouldn't it? But a great weekend for him in F3. Maybe he can make the move to F2. It would be great, but he got a podium. It's great to see an Irish driver on the podium. Let's keep an eye on him, and well done to Max Dunn. I'll see you after the Austria and British Grand Prix, as I think it's going to be a fight between Red Bull and Mercedes. not Mercedes. Well, actually, Mercedes has been in the mix as well with McLaren. I think Norris and Max Verstappen are definitely the drivers of the season so far. The Fifth Stop podcast with BYD Limerick and the Lions group as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you after the British Grand Prix.